Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Kaya's Commentary. Today is really an old topic now, but I wanted to bring it back because I was rewatching this show and realized how much of a fan I was of it and how awesome it would be to see a reboot. Today I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons of a Xena Warrior Princess reboot. Before I get down to that, you can follow me on Instagram at kaya.r.pennington and on Snapchat at queenathena44. Now, down to the video. So, Xena Warrior Princess was a 90s, it was really like a feminist movement. It kind of turned into one anyway. It's a 90s show spinoff of, what is it? It's either the Hercules, the Legendary Adventures, or the Legendary Adventures of Hercules. It's one of them. I'm gonna put it somewhere on the screen when I remember that name. So it was a spinoff of that. And so Xena, the story of it, she is a warrior woman and she was a warlord in a long past life, but she met Hercules and he basically turned her around and turned her to goodness, and so she was going to retire and just stop fighting, but then she ends up deciding that, hey, no, I want to right the wrongs of my past. So she roams from town to town with her trusty sidekick Gabrielle, doing good deeds to make up for that of her past. Now, Xena meets Gabrielle as she is burying all her effects. She's burying her weapons and her clothing, her armor. She doesn't want any of it. She doesn't want to be remembered with any of it. She's just going to go home and retire. She meets Gabrielle as her village, as Gabrielle's village is being attacked. And so, Xena just can't help but get involved. And she kicks their butts. And as she's doing so, she sees that Gabrielle is also fighting back when many of the other female villagers are just running, and the males in the village are fighting back. Gabrielle also fights back. So Xena seems impressed, and then Xena gets hit from behind, and she goes to grab her sword that she buried because she falls conveniently near her sword, and so she grabs her sword and fights back. And then, yeah, she wins, and the army runs out of the village, and Gabrielle's father takes her to his house so that she can be, fixed up or whatever, or somehow she ends up at Gabrielle's house. And then Gabrielle's father is like, yeah, we know who you are, we don't want you here, we don't want no trouble, just leave. And she's like, yeah, I'm planning on leaving. And so as she is dressing up herself, she's putting her armor back on, Gabrielle's like, please take me with you. Please take me with you. And she's like, nah, I work alone. That Batman, nah, I work alone. So she's like, I'm going home and I just don't want that. So she leaves and Gabrielle follows her, and as Xena goes home, she does not receive a warm welcome because her hometown people are wary of her because she's responsible for some of their people being killed when she started up an army at home to defend her village, but they ended up dying and losing anyway, so the people of the town are like, no. So Gabrielle, who has been following her, comes in and saves her from the stoning, and then Xena saves her village people from the warrior who comes in, who is somebody of her past, because he knows her and he knows that she was headed home. He decides that, hey, yeah, I'm just gonna go mess with your village. So she defeats him and they leave, and then Xena and Gabrielle leave together because, hey, it's a rocky start, but hey, they eventually become best friends. Now that's just all episode 1, but basically that's the gist of it. They just roam from town to town, defeating bad guys and trying to make up for Xena's past, all the while growing closer and closer. Now, pros of this show, of a reboot. It was in talk a few years ago that a reboot would be done, but then that was scrapped for some reason or another. But I think it should be brought back, and I think there should be a reboot because I would just, oh my gosh, I would just love to play Gabrielle. I would love to play Gabrielle. But outside of my desire to play Gabrielle, I think, like I said, this show was a feminist movement of sorts. You know, it was one of the few times, especially in this time era, that you saw like women warriors and that you saw an LGBTQ plus representation, because Xena and Gabrielle were so close, and they were often said that they loved each other, and there were even a few episodes where they kissed that people were like, yeah, that's a thing. But the producers or whatever of the show at the time, I think they said that they didn't want to go fully there. At the time period, that was all still new. Rather, that was new in public. So people were like, yeah, we don't necessarily want to take it there. But in this day and age, you know Xena and Gabrielle would be bisexual or just full-on lesbian. They would be something, and that would be some type of representation for the LGBTQ+, because they don't get a lot of representation. I haven't seen a lot of representation for the LGBTQ+ community. I know there was a few with the 100, but I was not a fan of that show, so I didn't watch it. But I heard a lot of controversy about it because I think they ended up killing off that lesbian character. So there's that. Same with Buffy. They ended up, they don't give us things of this nature. So I haven't yet to see. Now I know that there are some, I think the originals had a lesbian characters, or maybe that was the Vampire Diaries, or maybe it kind of went into both. I think it was the Vampire Diaries. But even then, it's just not centered around them. This would be centered around them. They wouldn't be side main characters or whatever. They would be the main characters. That's representation. Another thing for representation, you could have the ability to make Xena, I don't know, a person of color. To make Gabrielle a person of color. They could be native, indigenous, I'm gonna say it, indigenous person, that still didn't say it right, indigenous person, or they could be a black person, or an Asian person, or, you know, somebody of these descents. That would be a great representation. To see a person of color, not only a person of color, but an LGBTQ plus person of color. Oh yes. Oh yes. Another pro would be that, hey, a newer generation gets to grow up with this. Like I said in my first video, I'm a 2000s baby. Xena went off in like either 2000 or 2001, so I didn't even catch the end of that series. It was by the grace of my aunt, because my aunt is always introducing me to older things, that I actually saw Xena and fell in love with it. So that a newer generation, we always want to talk about girl power and boss movement and, you know, femininity as being, you know, just women in general. Women are awesome in general. But how many shows do we have about that? And that's a genuine question, because I don't know. I don't even watch TV anymore, so this would be something to put me back to the TV. I'm just steady watching streaming services now, so even then, I haven't seen anything that crossed my radar. So this would be something for a newer generation to get attached to say, yeah, I want to be just like Xena. And even for an older generation to be like, the nostalgia of it all. I talked about this in my last video. The nostalgic, it's just something, hey, I remember that's kind of like that, or that's kind of not like that, but I like how they did that, or I dislike how they did that. Even if comparisons aren't necessarily great for shows, because sometimes comparisons kill a show, sometimes they uplift the show. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, this reboot would be better than the original, but it would be something to latch onto, especially for a younger generation. Like, not enough people, especially in my circle of people, know about Xena and love Xena like I do, and that's a problem for me. You should enjoy this show like I enjoy this show. That's a problem for me. Also, more female workers, producers, directors in the background and behind the scenes, because I think one of the things was that there were not a lot of female writers for this show in the 90s. You could even have Lucy Lawless, who played Xena, or Renee O'Connor who played Gabrielle be writers and directors and producers of this show, of a reboot. That would be fantastic. That would be great. What better way to assure that it does not lose its track than to have the original people produce it, write it, even do cameos in it. That would be great. I'd enjoy seeing that. That would be something to get me back to TV. Lord knows I'm looking for an excuse to get back to TV. I hate watching streaming services all the time. I hate that I have to conform to that. That TV is becoming such an old thing. I don't want it to go away. Like DVDs are going away. I don't want DVDs to go away. Anyway, topic for another video. So, I just think that would be something enjoying. Like, I would love to see it. Now, a few cons of a reboot, it would, the comparisons, and it might not live up to its, its predecessor. Like I said, comparisons can kill a show, but they can also uplift the show. But if you compare too much of this, well, Xena didn't do that. Xena didn't look like that. Xena doesn't have an afro, or Xena doesn't have brown eyes or green eyes. It's just, come on now, don't compare it like that. Don't compare it like that. We want diversity, but that would be a con. Even me myself, I would fear that, hey, maybe it doesn't do as great as it should or as it could, but I would still love to see it try. One of the things of the reboots was that people wanted Xena and Gabrielle, Lucy Lawless, and Renee O'Connor to actually play Xena and Gabrielle in this reboot. Here's the thing. No one can do Xena and Gabrielle like they can. I will admit that. But I'd love to see others try. And I would love to see that diversity. I just don't think, and I think that came about because, what reboot was it? Was it the Connors? I think it was the Connors that has a spin-off reboot that has the original cast of Roseanne minus Roseanne. And so people are like, well, if they can do it, then they can do it. But, like, maybe not. Maybe they can't do this action stuff at their age anymore. And that's fine. Like, Robert Downey Jr. just got out of the Avengers. He's older now. He can't do all of that stuff. Like, that's fine. You don't have to be. I'd much prefer to see them as writers and directors and producers of the show than to see, or even just cameos, than to just see them star in it, because I don't want it to feel that nostalgic. I just want diversity, and I really want to play Gabrielle. But outside of that, I just want diversity. I want, it would be so cool to see Xena with the afro, or Gabrielle with the afro, or long indigenous people hair, or just something of that nature. So, but that is a con. Let me refer to my notes because I have forgotten. But yeah, I think that's just it. I think there's like the comparison issue, and it might not live up to the original, and people just want to see Xena and Gabrielle. They want to see Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor in these roles again. And I would just much rather see them, like, these are my thoughts now, these are not cons anymore, these are my thoughts. I would just much rather see them as producers and writers. I would like to see a more diverse cast. Xena, for all its glory, was inconsistent, and it did not have that great of a diverse cast. Now, there were a few black actors. Xena even had a black love interest in season 1. I can't remember if Gabrielle did, but there were black actors and actresses in this, but overall it was kind of inconsistent. And I guess that's another pro-con for me anyway. The con is that it was inconsistent, and the pro is that, hey, it can be more consistent in this reboot, especially with bringing back characters. Xena, the original show, brought back a lot of familiar faces. They brought back a lot of actors who played other characters, and the problem was that these characters hadn't died. They were just written off. Like, the dude who played, and I may be mistaken, but I think I'm right, Iolaus, Hercules' sidekick in season 1 of Xena, came back in like season 5 or season 6 and played another character, and I was confused because I was like, but he isn't dead. And Gabrielle's acting like, because he had an interaction with Gabrielle, and Gabrielle was acting like she didn't know him. So I'm like, is this Iolaus or is this another character? And another pro is special effects. Xena, for all its love and glory, had crappy, terrible effects, which, it's the 90s. Can you really expect more? It's the 90s. For that time period, they were doing something. So, props to them. But I just feel like in this day and age of CGI and just total kick-assery, I just feel like, you know, special effects could be extremely awesome in this reboot. So, but again, I have more pros than cons, and that's not how I wanted this video to turn out. But again, these are all my thoughts and my opinions, and my thoughts and my opinions, the pros outweigh the cons. Let's do this show. But a lot of people who grew up with that familiarity of it don't want to see things changed. If you do a reboot, you gotta do it right. I admit that. I agree with that. But I also feel like you can change up things and it still be alright. Which is why, again, I feel like I would like to see Renee O'Connor and Lucy Lawless be writers and producers and directors of the show, as well as just many other female writers and producers on this show. So, anyway, that's it for this video. These are all my thoughts and my opinions. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at kaya.r.pennington and on Snapchat at QueenAthena44. Thank you for watching. See you next time.